What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here, back with another 2 minute drill episode, and man, it's what everyone looks forward to. It's really like the signal that the season is right around the corner, and that's the first preseason polls have started to drop for college football, and the coaches poll dropped today. So y'all knew we had to cover that, man. So let's not even waste any time, man. First preseason college football poll, the coaches poll released. We got the results here. Of course, the banner covers it because why wouldn't it? And as you can tell, and by the votes, Alabama was an overwhelming favorite for number one, followed by Clemson, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and Georgia, rounding out the top five. And A&M, Notre Dame, Iowa State, North Carolina, and Cincinnati rounding out the top 10. And our bottom five, it ends off with Penn State, Washington, Oklahoma State, Louisiana, Lafayette, Coastal Carolina, and the Ole Miss Rebels snuck in there at the number 25 spot. So, Brandon, before we get into our over and underrated, is there any team that didn't make the top 25 that you were a little bit shocked about?
Not necessarily, Zach. I mean, I was looking for because I know that every single year we see Michigan in the top 25, like a team like that. They only got 30 votes though, or 30 points, not 30 votes. So they were overwhelmingly not on this list at all. They barely received any votes. Just looking at the list of teams that received any votes, they were all the way toward the bottom. But other than that, I mean, I didn't really have a super, super big problem with a lot of these ratings. I find the coaches poll, or at least the initial coaches poll, always has a better grip of things than the initial AP poll, which comes out at some point in the future. And I'm sure we're going to have a field day with that one because they always do something to just mess with us, I feel like. But I honestly didn't have that many issues with this.
All right, so that's perfect. So this is a perfect segue into our underrated. My first team who I thought was underrated actually is a team that's not even on the poll, Brandon.
Okay.
And that was Liberty.
Really? Okay.
What?
Well,
okay, so just
what I would say about that, and just to preface it, before you even get started, is that Coastal Carolina and UL Lafayette barely even made the list. They were right there at the bottom. So, I don't think you can put Liberty on this list if they just hardly made it.
Okay, I get that. And we'll address those teams in a second on my list as well, because one of those teams also made my list. But so you're telling me, Brandon, right now that Oklahoma State is a better team than Liberty?
I mean, not definitively. I'm not saying that. Obviously someone thought that. A lot of someone's thought that.
Are we? Did we not see Liberty just beat Coastal Carolina in the last game?
We did, but I feel like you're taking a giant leap from Coastal Carolina to Oklahoma State here.
No, I'm not. And listen, the reason I'm asking is because the preseason poll is based on how you did at the end of last year, on top of what you have returning. Based on all the reports, Malik Willis is pretty damn good, and he's still back for Liberty. They returned most of that defense, and they returned their head coach Hugh Freeze, who might be okay. So this, I don't even know if this is a stretch. He probably is the best or the second best Group of Five coach in the country. So are you telling me that Liberty is not a top 25 team after they finished last year in the top 15 and didn't lose that many pieces from last year's team?
I mean, I personally don't think they are. I also don't think that Louisiana Lafayette or Coastal Carolina should be top 25 teams either. I don't. I'm sorry, I don't.
Stop it.
Not initially, what? Dude. Zach, you heard me all last season. You heard what I said. You heard me talk about how they're playing in the Sun Belt or they're playing independent. And yes, they can play within they can play with other conferences because they didn't have the restrictions that a lot of the or all of the Power 5 schools have besides the ACC or Big 12 as well. So they could play outside of their own conference, but they didn't really. Who else did they play besides each other?
Liberty faced 3 or 4 Power 5 teams last year.
Okay, but I mean,
and
look at the
beat
top
them.
10. Do they play the top 10 in this list, or top 15 in this list, or top 20
Yeah,
in this list?
hang on, time out. Let me ask you something. How many of those top 20 teams are calling Liberty to schedule a game?
Okay, I mean, I'm not saying none of them, but we won't really know for another 8 years because that's how far out we're scheduling things.
Well, okay, but listen, Liberty plays Ole Miss week 10, I believe, and that'll be a big game. But you can't tell me a team that lost one game last year that the poll and everyone thought was a top 15 team last year who returns arguably a top 5 quarterback in the country and one of the best coaches in the country is out of top 25 school. I don't even care if you put them at 25. But you can't tell me that based off of last year, Oklahoma State, Penn State, Texas, USC did more to be in the top 25 than Liberty did on the field. On the field, I'm not talking about name recognition. On the field, who in the hell did USC, Penn State, Texas, Washington, or Oklahoma State beat?
I don't know why you're giving so much credibility to last season, Zach. Like that is bananas.
I don't care. Time out. Liberty went on the field and won the games that was on their schedule. Guess who didn't do that? The 0-5 Penn State Nittany Lions, who were getting smacked around week in and week out.
I mean, that's a fact. They didn't, but they also suffered from a ton of players, ton of high-profile players opting out, as did almost every other team on this list. And then you have Liberty, whose players aren't getting drafted immediately. And so, like, they aren't going to opt out because they have stuff to prove. Like, they have a chip on their shoulder. It's different. You can't tell me it isn't different.
All I'm saying is there's no reason you could tell me Oklahoma State is 22nd in the country and Liberty doesn't deserve to be on that list.
I'll give you this, Zach. I think Liberty, and I know I said I didn't have a real problem with this list. I have a couple of problems that you're about to hear about. I do agree that Liberty should probably be ahead of Coastal Carolina, especially since they beat them in the bowl game this past season. I'll give you that.
I agree. So my honorable mention, I'll get that out of the way. Then I'll let you get to your first underrated. My honorable mention was Coastal Carolina.
Okay.
Dude, like, I get it. Like, I get they're a group of 5 team, but Brandon, our whole motto on this podcast is, man, these group of 5 teams can compete. Coastal Carolina can compete. They were beaten they were smacking people on their schedule. I know they had some close wins or whatever, but you can't how are they behind Louisiana Lafayette, who they beat for the Sun Belt last year?
I mean, that's true. According to your logic, that is true. At least you're consistent.
And listen, Coastal Carolina, they were a top 10 team at one point last year, Brandon.
Yeah, they were.
And they returned, I believe, almost every starter from that team last year. And including, on top of that, you got Grayson McCall coming back. You got Jordan Strong. You got CJ Brewer on the defensive line. Isaiah Likely at tight end is one of the best tight ends in the country. You can't tell me this Coastal Carolina team isn't one of the best group of 5 teams in the country. And for me, Brandon, I get Liberty beat them. For me, there should not be a group of 5 team that's ranked higher than Coastal Carolina to start the season.
What about Cincinnati?
Well, other than Cincinnati, I'm bad. I went to correct myself because I consider them Power 5. Y'all know how I feel about the AAC. They should be second, right behind Cincinnati. For them to be at 24, below Louisiana Lafayette, who they beat for their conference last year, behind Oklahoma State, where what in the hell are they projected to do this year without Chuba Hubbard and Tyler Wallace and a bunch of pieces on that defense? And then you got Penn State, who started out 0-5 last year, and James Franklin. There's a lot of questions surrounding that. And Texas, what in the literal hell has Texas done in the past 5 years to even be in the top 20?
You were proving my point ahead of time, Zach. I'll talk about that later on.
But go ahead. Take your underrated teams, man.
So my first underrated team, and I feel like this one you might agree with. I hope you agree with. I honestly think Cincinnati being at 10 is insane. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't have any issue with the top 5 on this list. But if I'm re-ranking this for myself, Cincinnati's at number 6 for me. Because Texas A&M hasn't done a thing. I mean, yes, they're returning a ton of players. They're returning a ton of talent. They do have Jimbo Fisher as a head coach, so they have that going for them. I think I'd only bump them down to number 7 on this list if I had to re-rank it. But Cincinnati, I think, has to be at number 6 if I'm making this. Iowa State, yes, they've had a couple of good seasons here and there. Notre Dame, I'll talk about them as well coming up pretty soon. And who else? North Carolina. North Carolina could probably stand to go up a couple spots as well. But Cincinnati, to me, deserves to be right outside of that top 5 to start the season. But what I will say is thank you all to all the coaches who actually voted for Cincinnati in this coaches poll, because starting them out at number 10 this preseason sets them up, I think, in a way that they didn't get last year. Or they didn't get last season when they might have probably deserved to have this way last season. Because now that they're number 10 to start the season, it's only up from here. Like, we could legitimately see at some point, like when the playoff rankings start coming out, in October, like late October, early November, we could see Cincinnati being projected in that top 6 or maybe even that top 4, which is great for them. And like to have them number 10, that's an actual statement. And I love that, because they weren't going to have them any higher than this. Let's face facts. There's no chance they were going to be any higher than this in any poll to start the season.
Even though they should be. And you mentioned the playoff poll. So if I'm a Cincinnati fan, you need Notre Dame to be as ridiculously ranked as possible all the way until y'all face off in like week 4 or 5, because the higher Notre Dame is, the better that win will look if they can pull that win off. Brandon, let's just say they stay at 7. A win over number 7 Notre Dame on the road, what could that do for their resume, man?
Right. It would be insane.
And I like that pick. And, my final pick, you mentioned Cincinnati. How about Indiana at 17?
Yeah, they were also my list.
So we were thinking the same thing. Listen, Brandon, I know you got the LSU shrine there, and they're at I believe here I gotta move the banner because apparently it's blocking LSU and Oregon. Well, I'm sorry. There's no reason, in my opinion, that Indiana should be behind Miami, Wisconsin, USC, LSU, or Florida.
Yeah, I mean, LSU at 13 is a little bit ridiculous. I'll say it. It's a little ridiculous.
And I'm not saying that Indiana, blew the world away at the end of the year, but Brandon, you have to put an asterisk because Michael Penix went down. Indiana would not have lost some of the games they lost down the stretch if they had Michael Penix playing.
You don't have to put any kind of asterisk over last season, Zach, unless you're going to put it over the entire season.
Oh,
come on. Who's a better player, Zach? Who's a better player? Let's see. Michael Penix or Jalen Waddle? Who's a better player?
No, and I get that. But I'm saying to rank the preseason, knowing Michael Penix is coming back, you have to say, man, look how good they were playing with Michael Penix when they almost beat Ohio State, when they were sitting there at 6-0,
right,
to start the season. So that's what I'm saying is they should be ranked above this LSU team who went 500 last year. This USC team that.
I was gonna say why we singling out LSU here because there's a couple teams ahead of them.
And Wisconsin, who couldn't even muster up 3 points against Northwestern at a time last year. Miami, who can't beat anyone worth a damn. And then you even have Florida, who's returning like nobody. That is there a wide receiver that anybody can name right now at the top of their head?
Well, you and I, but nobody else, no.
Exactly. So Indiana, for me, I don't want them to be top 10, Brandon, but I think they're more deserving of that 11 through 13 spot than a Florida or an LSU is.
I think I would be happy with Indiana at 15 even. I think dropping them out of the top 15, that's what kills me. Because really, when we get down to the bare bones of it, at least LSU has some talent coming back. USC has a lot of talent coming back. Miami, yeah, they do, but did they really impress anybody with that talent last year after the first 4 games? Not really. They kind of fell off a cliff after they lost to Clemson. Wisconsin, Graham Mertz showed us that, I don't know, I'm still on the train, but I shouldn't be probably. And then, like you said, Florida lost everything. So I'd realistically be happy with Indiana at 15, maybe 14 overall. But 17 to me feels like a slap in the face of this team that came out of nowhere last season and showed everybody that like they're a really good football team when they're all put together.
Absolutely, man. So I want to move to the overrated teams here.
Okay.
And so I'll let you kick this one off, man. Who's your number one overrated team?
My number one overrated team, and I already mentioned them, is Notre Dame. Like,
Thank you.
I like Notre Dame. Like, I grew up Catholic, so of course, Notre Dame guy. Like, that's like my second favorite team whenever I was growing up. But every single season we see this. I don't want to be one of these guys, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse here. Notre Dame's overrated every single season. So is USC. So is Wisconsin. So are all these teams that haven't done anything. Texas, good God. I'm just going through my list right now of teams that are overrated, by the way.
Brandon has a hit list.
Oh, my God. Notre Dame is extremely overrated. I think that they're my number one on this list because I don't know if I put Notre Dame in my top 15 maybe. Like, I don't think I would.
I
They're
don't
losing
think so either.
Ian, they're losing like the biggest part of their offense. Not to say that's not saying a whole lot because Notre Dame's offense wasn't, and the running back, I forgot his name.
Kyron Williams.
Yeah.
He's coming back. Kyle Hamilton on the defensive side is coming back, but you lose Jeremiah Owusu at edge. You lose 4 offensive linemen to the NFL draft. So you have a new offensive line with a new quarterback who really wasn't that impressive at Wisconsin. How's the running game going to fare with all this new talent offensive line? Your wide receiving unit is not outstanding, and nothing else really stands out about this team other than Kyle Hamilton on the defensive side of the ball. So how in the hell are they 7, especially over Iowa State, who returns it feels like 22 starters on that team?
Well, I mean, you could say that about any of the 3 teams below them, Zach. I think Iowa State, North Carolina, and Cincinnati all have the right to be pissed off that Notre Dame's ranked number 7 ahead of them.
It's the name recognition, man. It always is. Notre Dame is like it's like the voting committee is like, man, we gotta prop up Notre Dame. It's like the stepchild that the parents feel bad for, so they showed a little bit of favoritism because it doesn't fit into any group, even though they are the reason they're not in any group, any conference. And it's like, you do it to yourself. I have no sympathy for you at this point.
And that's why they've made the playoff twice now, and that's why when they made the national championship in the BCS era, they played Alabama, they got curb stomped because they're there because of name recognition, and they can decide whoever they want to play, they can play, and that's just what it is. Yeah, they're gonna play Michigan and USC every year, but okay, so what?
And before we get to Texas, so I know it's coming, and we both have it on the list, but we'll end the show with that one. But I want to get to one team that's very controversial, and I'm gonna stand by it. Absolutely, I'm going to stand by it, and that is the Florida Gators.
Okay, I'm here for it. All Florida slander I can get. Let's get it in.
Brandon, this is going to be a tough take. Are you ready for this?
I'm more than ready.
I don't think Florida finishes in the top 20, and there's a good chance they aren't even ranked in the year.
I mean, there's a lot of unknowns in this for this team, Zach. They're returning almost no starters. They're definitely not returning any of the players that actually mattered on their team last season. They're losing Kyle Pitts, who's the biggest loss by far. They're losing Kadarius Toney. They're losing Kyle Trask. Who else, Zach? I mean, they're losing everybody.
Yeah, and I mean, Brandon. So I love positional rankings, especially to start the year. And when I look at they rank in the bottom half of the SEC, Brandon, for running back, for wide receiver, for offensive line, and for secondary.
Yeah. That's tough.
Terrible, right?
That's tough.
Terrible. And when you look at their wide receiving unit, Brandon, so I'm not picking on the wide receivers just because of whatever, but Jacob Copeland's probably one of their biggest receivers returning. Brandon, so all the Florida fans like to say, oh, that bowl game, everyone just opted out. Oklahoma beat a bad Florida team. That's what you're putting on the field this year.
Yeah.
That team you saw get just mollywopped by Oklahoma is the team you're going to roll out there with Alabama coming to town week 3.
I mean, that's tough. That's the scariest thing for them in the world.
I get it. They got DeMarcus Bowman at running back from Clemson. The wide receiver is going to be terrible. I'm not confident in Emory Jones at quarterback. And then you look at their schedule, Brandon. Alabama's a better team. That's an L. Georgia's an L. LSU's probably an L. And then what? I think Kentucky could be an L because I think Kentucky right now is better. And Missouri is not going to be a slouch November 20th.
Do you know where they're playing against Kentucky? This is just like random, but do you know?
I believe it's at home, if I'm not mistaken.
That's gonna be tough for Kentucky. I don't think they can beat Florida in Gainesville. Like maybe, but I don't think that's. I think it's like one of those things where Auburn can't beat LSU in Baton Rouge. That's what I think it is.
It could be, but I'm not confident in Florida, Brandon, and I definitely don't think they're a top 11 team in the country.
Oh, absolutely not. And that's why they were on my list, and then obviously we round off my list with everybody knows.
But put it up. Put them up.
Horns down. It's not against the rules in the SEC. This is the best day ever.
Hey, that guy who said in the comments we should get sanctioned for our Shadur video, they're going to be trying to sanction you for the horns down.
What do the sanctions look like for a college football podcast?
That is independent as all can be. But listen, Brandon, I agree with you. When I look at the Texas team, other than Bijan Robinson, what are you excited about over there in Texas?
By the way, Bijan Robinson came from the shell last season, and I only realized that now that I've been going back. I told you guys I'm a psychopath. I've just been watching college football games from last season, and I realized this dude could actually play. So he's going to be the real deal. But other than that, like, this team doesn't really have anybody. I say that, but they legitimately, like, I don't see anybody who impresses me at almost any position on this team.
I'm not excited about anybody on this team. And, like, listen, the quarterback, when you have a new starting quarterback, unless it's just like a surefire, like, like a Trevor Lawrence, like a Quinn Ewers, or a Bryce Young, someone like that, I'm not pumped about it. And I don't think Hudson Card and Casey Thompson move the needle to the level that level of recruit has.
I feel like that hit a little close to home when you say Quinn Ewers right there, Zach. That's tough.
Yeah,
we could have had him.
That is true. That is true. Listen, I mean, Bijan Robinson is going to be outstanding, Brandon, and I really do like. I think it's Demarion Overshone at linebacker. But outside of those two guys, Brandon, I'm not pumped about the roster. Listen, I get Steve Sarkisian is one of the best play callers in America, and that he had Alabama doing this and that. But let's be completely honest here. Unless he has the playmakers like he had in a Devontae Smith, a John Mechie, and Najee Harris, it doesn't matter what you call it.
That's true.
You have to have the players to execute. And that's how I feel about this team. And I think Steve Sarkisian has like 2 or 3 years till he gets this team to the level of competition where they can really compete for a playoff spot.
And if you don't believe Zach when he says that, let's look back at Alabama in 2019 and how they finished that season off. I know there were a lot of tough losses in that season, but a lot of their roster was hurt, and that's like he had to play with Alabama's second team, who's arguably better than almost any team in this country. Now he goes and plays with the JV squad at Texas. So it's going to be a tough season to watch.
Oh, it is. But, guys, comment below your thoughts on this top 25 coaches poll. It's preseason. It's all speculation. And, guys, tune in tonight, 7 p.m. Central. Me and B-Dub are live with our ACC preview. We preview the games to watch, the players to watch, the top storylines, all that good stuff right here live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So make sure to tune in, comment your opinions, questions, and we'll get to all of them as we're going through the live show, man. We're here for y'all, man. This is y'all's show. So anything y'all want to talk about, we got y'all. And, make sure to subscribe. Next giveaway at 700 subscribers. And, man, we can't thank y'all enough for the support, man. But for B-Dub, myself, and the Bluebloods, man, we'll be back tomorrow. But for right now, we out.